Broadcasting live from Barad-dûr on the plain of Arda, this is Tap Tap Concede. Welcome everybody to Tap Tap Concede. My name is Graham. Joining me is Kathleen.
Hello.
And Nelson.
I am also here.
And I said Arda because last time I said the plane of Middle Earth, which is, I was informed, technically not correct.
Right.
Arda is the name of the
world.
The Earth, basically, the planet. Yeah.
And then Middle Earth is this part of it.
Yeah.
And condolences to whoever's bridge of their nose was forcibly collapsed from the pressure from their glasses.
We're talking about Lord of the Rings this week, but before we do that, we want to remind you, of course, that this show is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Please check out cardkingdom.com/LRR for all of your card needs. Someone literally just sent me a tweet like moments ago saying that they and their friend both ordered draft boxes. This person from Card Kingdom and their friend from Amazon, and theirs has arrived, and the Amazon one hasn't. Yeah.
And not only did it arrive first, it also included a great bonus. What button came with it, Graham?
Oh yes, the new Card Kingdom button. If you say "Loading Ready Run Sent Me" button, please, I'll give you a little button which right now says, "I think I'm just Dan here."
Aww. Dan community, take note.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good.
And of course, this show and everything we do is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. We really appreciate it. Thank you. So between the pre-release and the early access event and the last sort of week or so, we've had some amount of chance to dabble with the limited environment for Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth. And
sorry, mayhem is happening just off screen. So
yeah.
Very low-key mayhem.
Hello, Baxter.
Yeah.
That's Finnegan.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. He's gotten big now. Yeah.
That's the rare
large.
brown cat.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about Lord of the Rings Limited and our thoughts on it and first impressions. And my sort of biggest impression, I would say my number one takeaway is synergy. Holy moly.
Yes.
There is all the different strategies synergize so well. I think I was playing a Boros deck with Rosie Cotton of Southlane, who of course is, you would think, is for the sort of
the food deck,
the halfling themed food deck, right? Rosie Cotton, by the way, is just a wild card in Limited.
She's kill on sight in Limited.
Yeah,
she's pretty important. Yeah.
2 and a white for a 1/1 ETB creative food token, and whenever you create a token, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control other than Rosie. But in Boros, you have the access to what's it called? Shoot, hang on. It's something of Moria. Just a moment. It's 2 and a red sorcery.
Make a 2 sets of tokens, right? Like
you make a treasure and a mass
two. Yeah. What's that one called? It's 3 mana.
Yeah.
Swarming of Moria. The swarming.
So that's 2 Rosie Cotton triggers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's very good.
And a mana.
Yeah.
To like make another token with or something. Right.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's just sort of seeing those instances where it's like, there's a lot of instances where it's like, okay, these cards are obviously for different strategies, but they still work together. Here there's a lot of synergy going on in this limited environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a few of the synergies that sort of cross over rely upon the like generous use of the word token, like with Rosie Cotton. I had a draft deck with 5 mana Eomer of the Ritter Mark, uncommon legendary human knight, a 5/4 haste, and whenever this attacks, if you control a creature with the greatest power among creatures on the battlefield, make a 1/1 human soldier. And that Eomer really likes Goth Mog, Morgul Lieutenant.
Yes, that makes all your tokens have death touch.
All your tokens get death touch, not just your amass token.
Mm-hmm.
So Gothmog really likes to see things that can put out other kinds of creature tokens. And yeah, I'm a fan of both of those cards, even when they're not together.
I had a green black deck with I think it's Peregrine Took. So
Okay.
it's the 2/3 green creature that whenever you if one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus an additional food are created. I'm actually only just now realizing the first part of that is any token.
Yep.
So if you
Yeah.
have a red green deck and Pippin and Swarming of Moria, then you make your treasure and a food, and you amass orcs and a food because those are different abilities.
I think that's right. You're creating a token on each line. I mean, could maybe hit the Oracle
Or-
notes to
Yeah,
double
maybe
check, but
maybe you only get one. But anyway, I was using
yeah.
it for food. That's okay. That's amazing. Anyway, also you sack 3 foods to draw a card. But yeah, in the red black deck, there's a saga that is the Oath of the Grey Host. It's uncommon saga, 3 and a black. You and target opponent each create a food. So you do give your opponent a food, but I think it pays off okay. Again, especially if you have Pippin and you're making 2 food. Then chapter 2, each opponent loses 3 life, and you make a treasure token. And then on the third step, you make 3 tapped, but still 3 1/1 white flying spirits.
That they come into play tapped is devastating.
It is. That's pretty rough.
Because, like, I definitely lost a game where I was like, all right, I'm going to get 3. I'm behind, but I'm getting 3 1/1s. And then they came into play tapped. I was like, oh, I'm dead. Oh, well.
But
now
if
I
you
know
have-
what this card does.
Yeah, if you have Rosie or Pippin,
Well, at that point,
with this card, it's pretty crazy, right?
yes. At that point, I didn't, though. So this card by itself, it works well with other other powerful creatures. I don't know how great this card is on its own or when you're behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's maybe not a good card when you're behind.
I did recently beat this card just because it doesn't add to the board.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about and I imagine this has been a matter of much discussion. Maybe I'm wrong, but so the ring tempts you. I said this during the early access event as well, but I wanted to get it down on record on Tap. That there was discussion before it came out about like this is all upside. There's no negative effects to being tempted by the ring. It's flavor failure. And Mark Rosewater, answered this on his Tumblr and was like, well, we experimented with it, and it turns out people don't like playing with negative mechanics. And it's like, okay, that's fair.
Why would I do something that's bad for me?
Yeah, I would argue that it's actually flavorfully great. I actually think that from a flavor perspective, the ring tempts you is actually very good, and here's my reasoning for it. The ring bearer thinks it's awesome. The ring bearer, as far as the person holding the ring is concerned, there is no downside. Why would there be? It's your precious. It's perfect. Everything's great. It just gets better and better. Everyone else is like, we got to stop that thing. And it really, especially as your emblem increases, it really puts a target on the ring bearer in a way that I find very interesting. That you make blocks you might not make otherwise. Like, yeah, I'm gonna have to put like a 1/1 and a 2/2 in front of that thing because my bigger creatures can't just eat it. I've got to try and trade off here, or like I have to use this removal spell on that 1/3 because
I'm gonna bounce a token because you made it your ring bearer.
Yeah,
right.
And it's like, I don't know. I think that flavorfully, how it ends up working mechanically is actually quite flavorful. Is how I sort of worded that sentence in an unusual way, but yeah, I don't know. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sort of gives the opponent the feeling of, Sauron in the tower, like trying to find this hobbit. Like, am I really going to spend this 3 damage spell to kill a 1/1? I don't know what else I'm going to do. I don't just want my opponent to loot all day.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. How much advantage are they allowed to get before it becomes a problem? Also, I've noticed that the ring may as well say target 1/1 has skulk.
Yeah. Yep.
So many 1/1s.
The 1/3 elf, I think it's Lorien Lookout or something.
Oh, that scries?
That scries. Very good ring bearer.
Yep.
Because Lothlorien Lookout, because you get to scry and then loot.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. But yeah, I've had people very quickly get up to 4. I had someone with they were like, Birthday Escape, Golem, Birthday Escape, something else, and it's like, oh, it's already at 4, and I'm like, yeah. Birthday Escape's a messed up card too, by the way. This single blue mana sorcery, draw a card, the ring tempts you. So it's a cantrip.
Is that messed up?
But in this limited format, I think it is.
All right.
Interesting.
I mean, in the lens of Magic, no.
Right. Okay.
No.
It's not my favorite card from the set, but
no, it's not my favorite either. But I think that it's very good, and I've seen it in sort of like blue-black
control kind of stuff.
Yeah, blue-black temptation, right? Like it was like a blue-black deck really focusing on getting the ring to level 4 as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And blue-red.
Finnegan, no. Sorry. Just to put some paws on the shelves.
Blue-red spells is the other one.
Thanks for joining our Magic the Gathering podcast, where we talk about Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, we're remote this week because the new Moonbase still isn't fully operational yet.
Cats.
That's maybe the coolest sentence to have Moonbase in.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
Can I talk a little bit? So my experience with this is I've been busy and grumpy this week, so I didn't want to do a draft, because if I scrubbed out of a draft, which is very likely when you're doing a format for the first time, I didn't want to feel grumpier than I already did. So I decided, I just know my emotional state.
No, I wasn't questioning you. Don't worry.
So I decided I want to play with these new cards, but I need a lower stakes way of doing it. So I've been playing some Jumpstart, because they have Lord of the Rings Jumpstart on Arena. So you get to pick packs and stuff like that. The problem with Jumpstart is I don't think I've ever played with Birthday Escape, despite the fact that I have taken, I've done about 4 of them. So I've taken the red, blue spells one, but that card wasn't in there because they have non-Lord of the Rings cards mixed in with the Jumpstart, which is very frustrating. But also they did have Third Path Iconoclast in this red blue spells one, and that card is messed up.
Less frustrating
in limited. Well, it was great for me though. I love that card. But I don't want to play Brothers War cards necessarily when I'm trying to play this. But it did. It's sort of been a good way to sort of get used to the format. And I have to say, my observation about this format from what I've seen I've done one Phantom Sealed, is that uncommons are where it's at. The uncommons are all very powerful. In some cases, they're more useful than the rares, I find.
I think that's fair. Excuse me.
I want to talk about a weird standout that's sort of important in the Ring Tempts You metagame.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a common 2-mana artifact creature, creature type Scarecrow. It's a 0/3 defender, and it can fix your mana a little bit. It's called Shire Scarecrow.
Oh.
And this card just exists to be a 0/3. It doesn't have reach, but in the early game, usually if they have a ring bearer, it's probably not a flyer. The flyers take a bit more mana usually. So if you want to get a cheap creature down and also make it your ring bearer right away, this thing could probably block it. And the mana fixing comes up occasionally. Yeah, it's got 0 power, which weirdly in the Skulk meta is relevant, right? Another kind of relevant one, although I find because the fire breathing is so expensive that this doesn't come up that much, but one of the Ring Tempts You trick sort of metagame pieces is Goblin Fire Leaper, I think it's called.
That card's really good.
Well, it's sort of important, right? It plays an important role where any creature, and this is an uncommon, but any creature that's easy to get your hands on that can change its power is relevant, right?
Yeah, because you can attack when it's a 1 power, and then because it can't be blocked by creatures with greater power, but then once blocks are declared and it's unblocked, you can pay to pump it. And if they do kill it, you can pump it up in response, and then you can zap something else too.
Yeah, and on the flip side, you can block a 1 power attacker, but then pump its power up to be able to kill it. Because there's Frodo and there's other sort of 1/3s or 1/4s.
Oh, like that elf.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. You can become
But it's 4 mana to pull off that trick. So, your opponent's going to see it coming, obviously. But it's a piece of the puzzle, right? Being able to do that. Or having pump spell tricks, it's we say this every limited set or whatever. It's like these pump spells are pretty good, you know.
Yeah.
But in this format, there's this extra value of like blocking with a 1/1 token or whatever, and then giving it 4 power so that it eats the ring bearer.
The Golem's Bite is not a combat. Well, it can. I guess it can be a combat trick, but they reprinted Disfigure in. Was it Brothers War?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think so.
And I was like, oh, cool, Disfigure. This will be great. And it was medium.
Fine.
Black's so busted in standard right now already. Yeah.
In that format.
Yeah.
Disfigure was like only sort of okay. In this format, Golem's Bite, which is the same but with more text afterwards, is very good. There's a lot of things that this kills. And then it's sorcery speed. Remember, it is sorcery speed. It sits in your graveyard, and then you get to just get tempted.
I will point out it's another uncommon. The uncommons in this set are bananas good.
Yeah.
Like the uncommon power level is high.
The I also really like there's a big synergy, of course, with legendary creatures. Because, of course, I think someone actually said, I think I heard Kenji say there were more legendary creatures than non-legendary creatures, and
I believe it.
I believed it. I didn't independently confirm this, but I believe it. But you know, you got to remember when you're looking at a card and being like, this card cares about legendary creatures. Is that any good? You got to remember, if you're being tempted, your ring bearer is legendary, and so that's super important. Like I've had things that have gone very well and badly by sort of misremembering that, where like the elf. I quite like this elf, the 1/1 scry elf, Haunt of the Dead Marshes.
Oh yeah, that elf is good.
So 1/1 for 1 Nightmare Elf ETB scry 1, and then for 3 mana you can return it to the battlefield tapped at instant speed, but only if you control a legendary creature. And I've had points where I've been like, okay, and then end of their turn I'll do that, and then they kill my ring bearer. And I'm like, yep, sure. And then I realized, whoops, wait, that was my only legendary creature. Now I can't return this Haunt of the Dead Marshes. There have been instances where it's gone better, but I can't remember any offhand.
Yeah, that's a sad time if your Haunt of the Dead Marshes is stuck in the graveyard in this set. Yeah.
Speaking of just good commons in black, Dunland.
Creebane? Yeah, love Dunland Creebane.
Creebane from Dunland!
Oh, you get 2 bodies. You get a 1/1 flying ring bearer. It's so good. That bird has carried that ring for me so many miles.
What was the other oh shoot. Nope, it's gone. There was something else I was gonna mention. Oh, the bats. Right. Also in that green black deck I was talking about earlier. Mirkwood bats. We've talked about the bats. I think they're quite powerful, honestly.
It's another one of the Rosie Cotton Peregrine Took situations, right? Where it's like,
it's
just says token on it. So it ends up being super messed up.
So 2/3 flyer for 4 mana, which is like not great rate, but the ability is whenever you create or sacrifice a token, each opponent loses 1 life. So that combined with a card that I initially thought was very underwhelming in the Brandywine Farmer. 2 and a green for a 1/1. When Brandywine Farmer enters or leaves the battlefield, create a food token. So you can have Brandywine Farmer come in, you get a food, ping them with the bats, then you can ideally trade if they have a 1/1, but you can just chump whatever their ring bearer is, save yourself some life, get another food. Then you also have 6 health and food sitting there. I actually used Sam's Desperate Rescue on a Brandywine Farmer. I didn't have anything much better to do on turn 4, so I was like, all right, let's do this. Tempt myself with the ring, get back to Farmer, play another thing, get more food. I was up to 6 food. It was really silly. So when I first saw Brandywine Farmer, I was like, I don't know. And then I read the Or Leaves, and I was like, oh, maybe. But it turns out the synergy is very strong.
You just want to make those tokens.
Yeah.
In the same vein, if you have Butterbur, Bree, Innkeeper, 2 green-white for a 3/3 legendary human peasant,
Oh yeah.
every turn you get a food token as long as you don't have a food token in your end
Oh.
step. So another great combo with either Rosie or the bats.
Or you can, if you have a nimble hobbit, you can make sure you keep using those food tokens. If you have mushroom watchdogs, you can feed the tokens to the dogs every
Yeah,
turn.
absolutely. Yeah.
I just love that the flavor is like, oh, you've finished. Please have more.
Yeah.
No, really, I can't. No, sir. It's only wafer thin.
Just a thin mint.
Yeah. This is something really cool that I noticed is that they figured out a couple different ways to prevent the armies from getting disabled in a way that feels really bad. Because like there's cards that can exile and destroy and do damage and all that, and that's fine. Those are normal cards. But blue has the sort of the lockdown enchantments, and this one, the Leechcraft, the something Leechcraft,
Bewitching Leechcraft.
Bewitching Leechcraft. This will lock anything down. But what you don't want to be in a situation where you have an army in play that you can't use, and then suddenly all your amass cards are just sort of the amass part is being wasted because they just keep loading up on this plank that's enchanted.
Right.
So Bewitching Leechcraft lets you untap the army if you take a counter off it. So, again, specifically the armies, this still, like, it sucks, and it makes the army shrink all the time, but it doesn't just, you don't have the bad feels of like, well, I guess I just get to look at your hand and make you discard a card, but the amass 2 from this golems whatever is just going somewhere useless because I can't do anything with it. Similarly, the white sort of the arrest for this set, Fog on the Barrow Downs, turns the creature into a spirit and not other creature types, meaning it's no longer an army. So if you have an army that's had this arrest effect on it and you amass, you'll make a new one and start amassing there. And I just think these are both very clever ways to avoid like super bad field scenario where you're just sitting staring at this ever increasing army that's useless.
Similarly, dealing with tokens in blue can be done with unsummons, like bounce effects, we usually say. And the only one in this set that costs less than 4 mana says non-token creature on it. Like you can cast Soothing and Smeagol. It's 1 in a blue for an instant, but it only returns a non-creature or a non-token creature.
That was the other one. Thank you. I was like, I know there was another thing I was thinking of that sort of fits in this.
Yeah, there's 3 other bounce spells, but they cost 4 or 5 mana.
There's sort of a white bounce-ish spell. It's like 2 white, and it's like you can target. It has to be a legendary creature. So if somebody has made their orcs a ring bearer, which happens more often than you think, you can get them there. But that's a very edge case, and the card's not super great otherwise.
Right. I kind of like that. Right, where it's like, if you end up in the weird scenario where you made your
Lost to legend,
yeah. White instant. If you turned your army into a legendary creature, now you can be gotten by this uncommon. I don't know. Is the card like fairly playable? Into its library 4th from the top. So this is almost exile target legendary creature.
I mean, it is. It's pretty darn good, and like I've definitely used it to good effect. It was in a jumpstart pack, and I thought, no, this wasn't in a jumpstart pack. This was in my sealed I did, and I thought, there's a lot of legendary creatures in this set. I'm gonna try it out, right? Like, and it was okay because like there are a lot of legendary creatures, but sometimes it didn't hit the card you needed to hit.
Fair.
Right? And like they don't, like some decks don't go that hard onto ring bearer stuff, right?
Yeah.
But overall, like it is pretty good, but like, I mean, I guess it's like a C, right?
Right. Yeah, it's probably it feels a bit like including a main deck naturalized. Maybe like sometimes you go for it because it sort of fills a hole that the rest of your deck otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The fact that it's only 2 mana as well. I feel like at least for sealed and draft, so much of this is well, maybe not so much. I feel like there's a lot of importance on early game tempo.
Yeah. This being double white slows it down significantly, though.
Yeah, but like if you can answer your opponent's first couple creatures, then you're way ahead. I was doing a sealed game where my opponent, I was just playing the Easterling Marauder, whatever it's called. It's just a 2/1, the piker that amasses 1 when it dies.
Yeah.
Right? I was just trying to play that, and my opponent cast Reprieve, the white remand, right? They 2 of those. So it's like turn 2, Easterling Vanguard gets reprieved. All right, turn 3, Easterling Vanguard gets reprieved, and
they're up 2 cards now.
And they play a 1/1. Yeah, they've replaced these cards. I'm way behind. They're getting to start developing their board, and they just ran away with the game. You know, and it's similarly if you can use cheap removal to kill your opponent's first couple creatures. Like if you can sort of win a tempo micro game over the first 2 or 3 turns, I think you're in a really good spot for the rest of the game.
Yeah, once you are behind, it is hard to stabilize in this format because like there's a lot of creatures that bring 2 bodies, right? There's a lot of like 3 drops and 4 drops that bring a 1/1 token with them and stuff like that. Like we talked about the Dunlin Crabane, and there's all of the red cards, and there's like a couple of white cards that are sort of like the Rohim flavor zone. And so like obviously you can play those cards to stabilize, but if you were already behind and your opponent has a good start, you could maybe not play anything for the first 3 turns or something like that, or not stick anything for the first 3 or 4 turns. And meanwhile, they now have 3 creatures on the board. And like, sure, a couple of them are little 1/1 tokens, but that's not that bad in this format. That's useful. So.
Yeah, about Reprieve, I don't know what feels worse, my sympathy or empathy towards all the Magic players going through the pain of playing against Remand and Limited and learning that this card basically has the same words on it as Time Walk, only it's an instant. Or the fact that when I had to do that, as I just double checked, it was fully 18 years ago. So I've got a couple of terrible feelings. It's not so much mixed. It is due to different flavors of feeling horrible about that. But yeah. My heart goes out to you.
They do say that culture moves in 20-year cycles, so like we're in for our Reprieve era. Good grief!
Giant Spider reprint now.
God.
Something that I do want to say about cards that absolutely just end the game is in the one sealed I've done, I got 2 Shadowfaxes.
Oh, Shadowfax is so good.
If you can untap with Shadowfax. I won a game last night because I untapped with I had Shadowfax and like 2 other creatures. And the 2 other creatures were just going to be like unprofitable. But like I was like it didn't look like it was a good attack, but I had Shadowfax and they couldn't profitably block Shadowfax. And I had like 6 mana. And they were at 8 life. So I attack with Shadowfax my 2 creatures, which they use their 2 blockers to eat, which makes sense, thinking they're going to take 4 from Shadowfax. Using the free put it into play tapped and attacking, I get that Goblin Fire Leaper we were talking about earlier, and then pay the 6 mana to pump it to get them dead out of nowhere. Wow. And like I was at 10 life. This had been a very swingy back and forth. Creatures are trading, doing things. But yeah, the second Shadowfax was good because it's kind of a kill on sight for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So... I mean, it sucks if you don't have any creatures in hand, but it is a 4/4, so it's not so bad.
Always carry 2 Shadowfaxes.
Yeah. Horses get lonesome if you just have one.
Oh.
Not that I have a huge number of events under my belt on Arena, but I have lost at least 2 games to absolutely wild, like 4 or 5 color whoops all legendaries.
What's the fixing for that?
Bad. It's not good. Like there's not a lot of fixing. There's like the Woes Protector,
Woes Pathfinder.
There's rockets. There's rockets and that land that casts
Wizard's rockets.
spells. Yeah.
There's the Shire Terrace. and many partings.
And Great Hall of the Citadel is like surprisingly decent at casting off-color bombs, right?
Which one's that?
So it's a common, and it's a land. It's not legendary itself, so you can have multiples of it if you need. Taps for a colorless, and then it has 1 and tap, so it's kind of like Uncharted Waters or whatever. You know, they make a bunch of those. Yeah, Unknown Shores, right? The classic like filtering. But this land doesn't produce mana while you're filtering, right? Only it does. It adds 2. So it's like you get the mana back from this land, and you get 2 mana in any combination of colors. So it's like perfect mana fixing, or like the best you can ask from 1 card, basically. But you can only spend it to cast legendary spells.
Okay.
But a lot of times when you're splashing, it's for a legendary spell.
Yeah.
And if your plan is to pick up 2 or 3 of these in draft, you can also kind of just double splash out of color if you want. Like if there's just Legolas counter of kills going around late, you already took 2 Great Halls, like you can get away with it.
And there's a cycle of cyclers. I forgot about that. The cyclers.
Yes.
Yeah, the cyclers are all pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope those cards stick around. I really like where they've got these basic land cyclers.
Me too.
Yeah, they're high cost cards. If you draw them late and you don't need the land cycling, maybe they're good. They're generally like they're like C+ creatures, right? They're not like amazing, right? But like, I'm happy to have one. You know, it's fine as an optional curve topper. Or if I have it early, it's just like, yeah, land. Right? Very nice.
Yeah. It was what ended up killing me in the game that I'm thinking of was that first they had, it's the Erkenbrand, Lord of Westfold.
Card's good.
So 3/3 human soldier for 3 and a red. Whenever it or another human enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn.
I'm a
There
fan.
are a couple cards that make more than 1 human at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of scary. But also that, and then where is she? Looking for Eowyn. Is it Eowyn?
Probably
Eowyn, Fearless Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 red white for a 3/4 with haste, and when it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls with greater power. Legendary creatures you control gain protection from each of that creature's colors until end of turn.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a blue-black deck. I can't remember what the creature was, but they exiled a 4-power blue-black creature, and so then all these legendaries that they've been making just got protection from all of my creatures.
Yeah.
And they had haste, and all got boosted because of Erkenbrand. And yeah, it was a slaughter.
Oh.
Yeah. Hey, can we talk about Faramir? Actually, this card's messed up. It's a rare. 2 white blue for a 3/3 human noble.
Mm-hmm.
This is Faramir, Prince of Ithilien. At the beginning of your end step, choose an opponent. That's when the trigger goes in the stack. This is like a super delayed trigger. But it's at the beginning of the controller's end step. So unless you immediately on sight kill Faramir, something's going to happen.
The trigger has haste, yeah.
Yeah. At the beginning of that player, so the opponent, at the beginning of that player's next end step, you draw a card if they didn't attack you. Otherwise, create 3 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens.
Barf.
And that happens every turn. So it's just like, what? I don't attack you, and you just get to draw 2 cards every turn. Or I do attack you, and you make 3 1/1s? It's so messed up.
Yeah.
There is, there definitely is the chance of you milling yourself out in this format if you're too greedy.
If you dig too greedily and too deep?
Yeah. Like, I have definitely, like, won a game on 0 cards, and my opponent had, like, 10 or something like that. Wow. Because when you combine, like, you're drawing cards with your ring bearer, right? You can pay to, like, there's lots of other effects that draw you cards, right? You get to draw a lot of cards in this format. So...
There's a bunch of looting and rummaging too, right? Like,
yeah.
It's like some of it you don't notice because it's just your ring bearer attacking. I also think that the ring tempts you. Maybe it has more to do with the structure of what actual cards ended up in the set, but in general, like a mechanic that gives the creature skulk and then also lets you profit from attacking and dealing damage to the opponent with it. I think that lends itself to games that are either over really quickly, as like both people just like have to commit to this race, or get into like a big long standstill as you're just like, okay, I can't commit these 3 creatures because I've got to be able to block their ring bearer, and then they also have a flyer, so I'm going to leave this thing home, and then like I've got to have 1 spare because they have 3 cards in hand, so I'm not going to attack this turn. But if I can get like 3 more creatures than them, then maybe I'll be able to attack with one of my flyers or something, and like the opponent's doing the same thing. You're both making a legendary skulk creature, and like I've had a few games where it feels like the Ring Temps You has pushed us to create this board stall, and I don't really like board stalls, and I think I'm fairly decent at not letting them happen by accident, right? Like I'm usually okay at finding my correct attacks. But the board stall situation is another one of these, like, sometimes you mill out, enablers, I guess, or
yeah, like I'm attacking you for 1 a turn.
Yeah, and each turn I deal you 1 damage, I also have to dig.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I also, just because I did mention it when I was talking about the ring Temps You earlier. I do really like, from a flavor perspective, how there are certain cards like Gandalf and Galadriel who like super do not want the ring.
Yeah.
They're like, no, don't, I cannot hold this. Do not tempt me with this. And so it's like, if you are tempted by the ring and you choose a creature that's not them, you get a sizable bonus by not picking them as a ring bearer. And obviously that's just a powerful thing mechanically, but from a flavor perspective, I love that.
Yeah, no.
This card's messed up. Gandalf, Friend of the Shire. Again, another one of those powerful uncommons.
I haven't been wrecked by this yet, yeah.
I've been wrecked by this pretty often.
Okay.
Yeah. 3 and a blue, 2/4 flash. So it's just, good blocks. Only 2 power, but high toughness, so it can eat some number of ring bearers. You get to cast your sorceries like Birthday Escape as though they had flash. And then if you choose a creature other than Gandalf to hold the ring, then you draw a card.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah.
And he's a 2/4, which is a really good blocker in this format.
Right, that's true.
Like that 4 toughness is really powerful, because I feel like, there's a pretty steep, like, you get up to 4 toughness, but that's almost as high as it goes, right? There's very few creatures with sort of naturally above 4 toughness, and there's a lot of creatures with 3 power. Kathleen stating obvious and boring things that are clear.
No, it's okay. Yeah, it's important.
No, I mean, I'm just trying to think. Like, we already saw at the PPR the overwhelming synergy that's possible, like in the Scry deck. I'm trying to remember what.
The Scry deck is absolutely messed up if you can get all the right parts. I did pretty good with like missing a bunch of it, right?
That's the thing, is that there's so many potential parts that, like, there's no. I feel like, anyway, in the Scry deck specifically, there's no linchpin. There's no single thing that it's like, well, I thought I had the Scry deck, but I never got this one uncommon.
The blue-green Arwen is probably the linchpin of that deck. That card is messed up. But that's the payoff.
But the thing is, you really don't need that. Like, even just the Lookout and Chance Met Elves is like, that's enough, right?
Yeah, the Chance Met Elves will just get you with one other piece. It can be like Chance Met Elves and anything, and now you're going.
Yeah.
Right? You're just bigger than your opponent's creature. Yeah.
That's messed up.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's just like sort of a broad strokes. Is this good? Is this fun? I'm enjoying
this format.
It.
I've been enjoying it. Yeah, it feels like a core set, and yet it's fairly complicated. You know what I mean? Like getting the vibe of the cards is pretty quick and easy. Like, you got your Scry cards, got your Amass cards, got your Ring cards, like. And you can sort of tell which home most of the cards want to be in. I want to say faster than a normal set. Does that make sense? Like, it just seems like the cards grok pretty quickly.
Yeah, the cards have fairly clearly delineated groups and color themes that they go with. Like, hobbits care about food, and elves care about scrying, and orcs care about amassing, and like stuff like that. Like, so that is like easy to pick up, even if you're not super familiar with Magic, which is definitely intentional. Also, I've never been asked so many times by Arena if I had fun in a match when I was playing Lord of the Rings Jumpstart.
Oh, really? Didn't they just turn that thing up to 11?
Probably because they're thinking this might be where new players come in, right? It's an inexpensive on-ramp where you get to experience Magic and the cards in a super low stakes environment.
Right.
I saw, speaking of sort of the complication, I just wanted to share this incredibly cool line that I saw. I think it was this. Mercifully, this was not against me. I think I saw this in a game that Kenji was playing, where the opponent had a 1/1 army, and the attack from the Black Gate.
Yes.
Sort of
the 2-mana enchantment.
2-mana
Yeah,
enchantment.
glad we're talking about this card. Yeah.
There we go. March from the Black Gate. Yeah. So this card's really cool. Let's just talk about this for a sec. So 1 and a black enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, and whenever an army you control attacks, you amass Orcs 1. So, what's bad about this is that if you lose your army, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
You have to get another army and attack with it to grow it.
Right.
Right. But it does start itself off. So they had this. They had the Gandalf I mentioned, and their 1/1 army was their ring bearer. So they go to attacks. They attack. They attack with several creatures, and then with the amass trigger, they had to attack with that army to get the amass trigger on the stack. With that trigger on the stack, sacrifice their 1/1 army to Nasty End. Because it's the ring bearer, it's legendary, so they draw 3 cards. Then the amass trigger resolves. They have a new 1/1 army that's no longer attacking, but then they can sacrifice that to Lash of the Balrog to kill something. And they had 2 things that required sacrificing sacrificing creatures, and the only way to do that was to attack, get the Black Gate trigger on the stack, respond to it, so that then they got to sack the 1/1 and then the second 1/1.
What a great line from your opponent.
Yeah, it was great. It was very cool.
Did they end up getting the March of the Black Gate to turn back on next turn?
I do not remember.
Okay, fair enough. Did they kill 2 of your things and then you just played another bomb and then killed them? You monster, Graham?
Yeah, I don't know. They drew 3 cards there, so it's probably fine.
Yeah, I think that's a good example of how March of the Black Gate ends up working out. Like, this is a card where you look at it and you think, like, oh, well, if my token gets murdered, then I get nothing else from this enchantment. But, like, you already got at least a 1/1. I mean, it was only 2 mana. And obviously, you don't want to pay 2 mana for a 1/1 that doesn't do anything else. But, like, it's potentially like a Tarmogoyf on its own at uncommon.
I mean, I've definitely...
They just don't block it.
I made an 8/8 army with this card.
Yeah, with no help, just hitting them, and then eventually they're chump blocking.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like they just don't want to block a 2/2 on turn 3 sometimes, right?
Yeah, after a certain amount of turns, this just says the Abyss.
Yeah.
This is a pro tip that I learned during War of the Spark, when people were playing the Heartfire deck, forgot, and then learned again rudely in a game here. If you are at 4 and you're playing against red, and the card I'm talking about here is Improvised Club, by the way, just for Paul's benefit. It's 1 and a red instant. As an additional cost to cast it, sack an artifact or creature, and you deal 4 damage to any target. We're so trained to always do things at the last possible moment, instant speed, right?
Right.
I should have eaten my food on my turn when they were tapped out. Because what happened is, goes to their turn, they pass the turn. At the end of their turn, I pay to activate the food, and with that trigger on the stack, they use the club
and got ya
and kill me.
Oh.
So yeah, you don't always want to wait.
It's true. Brainstorm on your main phase, kids.
Yeah.
It's a fine thing. I want to ask, you've been drafting, Graham, and my Twitter feed has an opinion, and I sort of, in my limited experience, I haven't played a ton yet, but so far it seems like the various values, the sort of hierarchy of the colors is a bit polarized. Like, it's a bit more blunter or obvious and a little bit less nuanced than some sets, which is like maybe true of most core sets. I think back to like core set environments I liked, and like not all of them were totally balanced. Do you have a feeling of like what your favorite 2-color combo is, or not being swayed by incredible rares where you're going to end up usually?
Not really. Have we already had the sort of the court of public opinion decision on that there is a bad color?
I don't know if there's a bad color. I think it's just that red and black appear to be like the most popular, and then like the other three are like not as popular. Or it's like green is like nobody likes green or something.
I think green has a lot of good stuff in it. I mean, I've done a couple sealed and some drafts, and I don't know. I mean, obviously black has a lot of powerful cards, but like I've seen a lot of white going around. Just no one. I think in 2 of the drafts I've done, it was just super open. And I ended up with a pretty sweet deck in one of them and a medium deck in the other, and the results sort of bore that out. But yeah, I don't know. I have not personally noticed anything being particularly stand out compared to others. I don't know. Have you?
So I've just been drafting Mardu decks so far. Like I've been white red and black red usually. I know like what a decent looking blue green or green white deck looks like from matches I've judged and watched. But it just we were talking earlier about how if you can, it often benefits you a ton to kill their early creatures, like just because of the nature of the ring tempts you. If you can just like keep them from attacking until after turn 4. Then you're kind of in business in this environment. And I think red and black are sort of the best at that, with like Golem's Bite, Lash of the Balrog we talked about earlier. There's Morgul Knife Wound, which is a common, doesn't actually stop a creature from attacking, but usually they're going to sacrifice it. And then in red, there's like a really good Incinerate, as well as like a 1-mana combat trick.
Indestructible.
Yeah, loses Indestructible, they take 3 damage.
Smite the Deathless.
Exactly. There's also like a fire. There's 2 mana to deal 1 damage to each of up to 2 target creatures. Cast into the fire, and Breaking of the Fellowship. So these are all 2 mana. So like a bunch of decent removal in both these colors, which is typical. It's just maybe a bit more relevant in this format where, if you can. Oh yeah, there's even uncommon. I forgot about Ranger's Firebrand. That one's really good too. If you're able to kill those early ring bearers, then the opponent's strategy sometimes gets stymied. And so I think that's part of what's pushing the value of these. But yeah, I haven't actually drafted blue very much, so I'm curious if like you have any tips for core blue things, because whenever I'm opening packs and I see like no one's taken a blue card yet, I'm usually just not as interested as like trying to take a Hobbit or take an Amass card.
I think blue is good as a secondary color, but I wouldn't want to be primary blue, to be honest with you. I'd want to be like blue-white, or I don't know how much I'd be vibing with blue-red.
I mean, the blue-red spells, there's the 2/1 that pings every time you cast a spell.
Right.
But that's a red card.
Yeah. No,
it's good.
I'm supporting you in that.
It's good with Birthday Escape, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess if you're in a primary blue deck, then you're looking to be a temptation deck, right?
Okay.
Like you're going with black, almost in that vibe.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's where I think that's where blue is doing most of its heavy lifting. Otherwise, it's the support in the blue-green Scry deck with like that 2/1 that you can make unblockable and hit for 3. Or with
the blue-white creatures are pretty beefy. Like at uncommon, there's a 4/4 flying. And then I suppose, if you open up Faramir blue-white, then you just gotta dig your heels in and make that plan. Yeah.
Yeah, what you said, like what I was talking about earlier, with it's like however you deal with it, if you can deal with the early, with like the first couple creatures, then you're in a really good spot. And red-black has a lot of cards that can do that on the first couple turns, whereas blue and white and green don't have as many. Green having the least. I like Stew the Conies is 3 mana, and you need a creature to
do it.
To do that. And blue you've got the Reprieve, sorry, white you've got the Reprieve, blue you've got the Soothing of Smeagol or whatever, but those are much more sort of
temporary setbacks, as opposed to now this is not a problem for me.
Yeah, which is again still very good if you can temporarily set your opponent back, like Nelson said, the instant speed time walk. But it's ultimately more effective to just kill it.
Yeah, like you have to deal with playing something like Hithlane Knots, right? It's like 1 in a blue for instant and just tap our creature and scry 1. And like some games you're just gonna spend that early so that you can spend your mana
Yeah.
I try to have a curve to stop your opponent's creature from attacking you. But then later, hopefully, the scry one means this is like 3 other cards or something.
Mhm.
But that's like, I don't know. I just find if my plan for my deck involves like spending whole cards to buy a little bit of time early in the game, I'm usually nervous. Although it replaces itself, so I guess it's not that much different from Reprieve.
Mhm.
We'll see. I'll probably put some time into experimenting with blue in this format.
Feel like
But
blue is like always the bridesmaid, never the bride in this format, which is fine.
Sure.
Like that tastes great with two great tastes that taste great together, blue and other colors.
Yeah, excellent. But yeah, currently overall where I'm at right now is still enjoying this format. Think they did a pretty good job of making it easy to pick up for new players, which was really smart. You mentioned that as well earlier with Kathleen. And yeah, I'm still looking forward to exploring it more and trying different things out.
Yeah, no, with moving the moon base, I have not had an opportunity, I've not had as many opportunities to just really jam in some events as I would have otherwise, or certainly not as I want to. So I'm looking forward to playing more of it. Honestly, like I certainly am not like yeah I played some and it's fine and I'll play more. No, I am eager to continue playing more of this. So
Yeah.
no, I'm very much enjoying it.
How about you, Kathleen? More jump starts in the future, or
I'm done with Jumpstart. I've seen
Okay.
the cards. Now I'm going to be when I have a bit more time, I'm just going to start. I'm going to do some drafts. Like I would like to do a draft. I was just like, I don't know if I have the time and energy to spend my gems on this. Right?
Yeah.
Free to play for life, baby.
I have a lot of
for you?
I have a lot of jump in tokens kicking around. I might do some of that for funsies as well.
Yeah, they give you 5, and it's like 1,000 gold, so it's very cheap. You get to keep the cards, I think. Do you? Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I think
I think you probably do. Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
they're
Unless
not-
they've changed it.
They're not like super amazing cards, but sometimes you get a cool rare.
Do we know if the jump start only rares from paper are on jumps to jump in arena?
I think
have
they
not seen
usually
them.
are. Oh, really? Okay.
I have not seen a single one of them, but that doesn't mean they're not there.
There's only 5.
Yeah.
I think, like from previous sets, I believe that you can play Tiny Bones in like on Gladiator or whatever, right?
Yeah, like Tiny Bones is.
But I don't know if that doesn't exactly answer your question. But I feel like it's typical.
Yeah.
I will say I'm curious to know, just because I talked about it so much earlier. I'm curious to know, having not played this in paper outside the PPR. Would love to know from anyone watching at home who's had a chance to play this in paper. Because actually, have you played this in paper at all, Nelly?
Not yet.
Yeah.
No.
Is keeping track of the ring emblem as annoying as I think it is? Because on
Right.
Arena, everything's handled, right? It's just like, oh, you get tempted, great. You're at level 2, pick a ring bearer, and you just sort of move on. And I feel like it's more cumbersome on paper.
So I've been in at least one paper game, since the set released, and I don't think it was that bad. And at the PPR, like we just had.
Yeah, PPR is a
card.
different experience.
I know it's a different experience,
Yeah.
but like I do think that the technology we use in the PPR for the players just at the table, I think it's clear enough. So if you just have like one of those cards they give you from the packs and you put a dice on it, like that's worked so far.
Okay.
Yeah. So definitely not. I think it honestly isn't as bad as like Day Night, right? Like that one's particularly tough because
Yeah.
even though there's only 2 states and it's the same for everybody, and like it affects cards on the battlefield, and like there should be a bunch of visual evidence. The problem with Day Night is that you have to keep checking constantly, whereas with the ring, it's like, oh, what level am I at? And then every time the ring tempts you, it's like, okay, I just go up 1.
Yeah, Day Night is hard because you are not only tracking changes of information, you are tracking lacks of information because you flip when you don't cast spells.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't do anything, so something happens is a contradictory state for a brain.
It's like extra hard to remember, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, fair enough. Curious to see what you in the comments feel about. Well, I mean, about anything we said, really.
Yeah.
How are you doing the format? Please let us know.
Please.
But yeah, unless anyone has anything further, I think we'll call that an episode.
I've contributed as much as my feeble brain will allow.
I feel I have shared my thoughts on the format so far.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yes, myself as well. And so then, until next time, a reminder that Tap Tap Concede is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Check out Card Kingdom. Ask for a button. Tell them we sent you. They're a good bunch of folks. And this show and everything we do is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. We really appreciate it. Until next time, I've been Gray. I'm joined by Kathleen,
Ha!
Nelson,
Hi.
and Paul on tech. Heather gets these online. Thank you all so much for watching or listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.